It's the Post Pod Show.
Welcome back to the Post Pod Show. I am Jeff Gibbard, and you are
Lou Diamond.
That's right. That is your name. You got bonus points on that for getting that right. Today we're going to talk about technical difficulties during recording. You've never experienced this, right? Like every podcast goes absolutely perfully.
No runs, no drips, no errors. I've never had one of these technical problems.
Never
No, of course. They're
never
endless.
a hum on the microphone. Yeah. No Zoom glitches. No bandwidth issues. No internet going out.
The technical difficulties, I think we've also, you know how we become like a victim of our own success in a lot of ways.
I think about this all the time. A victim of, cry for me.
Well, think of it this way, right? Like,
okay.
The first days of podcasting were the two cans going back and forth with a wire in between, and hopefully we got some recordings. You remember those days? And eventually we found a way to record stuff on tape recorders, and digital came along, the internet came along, and all of a sudden they had this medium of podcasts. And the ways that we would communicate, because most shows are interview shows, as opposed to just the guest waxing poetic or giving a message, whatever it be. Most shows are two people speaking together. And it is in that area. It is in the two people connecting together that technical difficulties have taken a whole new range of challenges that can be ear-popping, frustrating, editor disaster nightmares, whatever you want. Stuff that literally will keep you going, oh my God, to get this finished product of this episode into something that will actually be good is going to take a lot of effort. So yes, technical difficulties happen from the minute we turn on a microphone to the minute we try to hit the record button until we hit stop at the end. And there's just an umpteen number, and I can't wait to talk about them with you, Jeff, because you and I
you mentioned that like adding a guest increases the number. You and I actually have been together on an episode with not just and another guest. We've actually been on several where it's like a round table, right? So you got four. So the more variables you introduce, the more potential technical difficulties you introduce. Different people have different internet speeds, the broadcast from different places. But I would say that as I reflect upon the what did you call it, the victim of our own success, that the technical difficulties that I've experienced throughout my career have fallen into, I would say, 2 or 3 different categories. The first is user error. That's just like straight up, I did something stupid. Mm-hmm. 2 is sort of like equipment problems. And then I guess I would say that the third one is a different level of equipment problems, which is just subpar equipment causing issues, right? Yeah. So I recently went back and I have all of my old stuff from forever ago archived on a hard disk. And I said, you know what? It's no longer available. I'm going to re-upload it as an archive so that I now have the ability to go back and listen to some of my old stuff. So I recently began uploading my first podcast. It was called Social Echoes. I was back in like 2015. And I was listening to that. I was listening to the True Voice Media podcast called Conversations, which was my first real podcast, I guess I would say. It was like the evolution of the first one. And I was listening to the audio quality. And,
oh my goodness.
Oh, sweet. I've never heard any of your like old stuff, but your voice has always sounded crystal clear to me. I was listening to some of it. I was like, good Lord, where were you recording this? And what were you speaking into? It was the can with the string. It was horrible.
So there's 2 key elements to what you're saying there, and I'm totally agreement. Okay, one is obviously I'm working backwards on your issues, which was like the types of equipment and the equipment malfunctions. But to me, it's really comes down to 2 things. There's the microphone itself, and then there's the lack of something. It could be the lack of the microphones, the lack of headphones to bifurcate the sound, or you get guests who go into these conference rooms to go record themselves, and it's an echo chamber that you just can't believe. And the most common technical difficulty that I have run into with the sound is the guest does not have headphones. They may have a microphone. My voice comes through their computer, and that speakerphone effect takes place with their microphone. So they get cut up like that when they're talking. You know what I'm talking about? That's the number one technical difficulty that I have found. And you can see it if you ever look at what the audio files look and what the tracks look like. When you see the sound coming, your voice sometimes is coming through their microphone and the recording on the stuff they're doing. And it's just awful to the ears. It makes it difficult to always hear what they say. Sometimes I get cut off. That technical difficulty, out of all the ones that drives me crazy, that's the one that drives me the most crazy. I put it in my notes when I send to the people, please get headphones, please.
Yeah, I have that in my onboarding as well about the headphones. And we have an episode coming up where we're going to completely drag in the kindest, most informative way. We're going to drag the guests for poor audio quality. I'm curious what some of the technical difficulties you've experienced on your end have been. And I'm going to tell you my number one most traumatic technical difficulty that I have ever had. And then I'm going to let you tell yours.
Okay.
Here's mine.
You go first.
I'm going to tell you mine first. First one. This is the biggest technical difficulty I ever had. I don't know if it's ever happened to you, but if it did, you remember it. I had an interview with Scott Stratton back when I had, love Scott, right? Scott is an amazing speaker. He's an amazing podcast guest. He's just an amazing all around. Yeah. I mean, just an all around amazing conversationalist. And like, dude is just awesome to talk to.
That's a nice ponytail too, by the way.
Yeah. Man bun.
Excuse me. That's a better call.
And it was back in, God, it was like 2015, 2016, 2014. It was in that zone of time. And I had him on my show Conversations. And we had, I shit you not, it was 11 out of 10 interview. We just had a great time, great conversation, got through the whole thing. Everything to me sounded amazing. My mic was actually sounding good that day. No echoes, no interruptions, no background noise. I forgot to hit record. The whole thing gone. None of it. Didn't happen. There was zero recorded evidence of this conversation. And I had to let him know that. And I can tell you, I have never, as a podcaster, felt more embarrassed and ashamed than that email. That's the user error.
There goes your user error.
And that's why it came to me first, because it is seared into my consciousness as the number one technical difficulty I've ever had. I used to have a sticky note right here for before every episode. It was a sticky note that said, press record, because I never want to experience that again. I actually usually hit record nice and early so that even if I have extra, I'll just cut it out rather than miss the interview.
Wow. By the way, that sucks. By the way, that actually happened when my first appearance on Nice Guys on Business. For the first 4 minutes of the interview with Doug Sandler, he forgot to hit record, and we had really good, funny stuff in the opening.
Yeah, I'm sure.
And and it's actually more funny that we're making fun of it as we are today. Yeah, I have a tie for the two worst experiences, and they're kind of related, and I'll do them quickly. One was I used to use a service. I won't say their name just because but basically they had a backup type of system. I recorded the service with them, and the actual content got lost. And it was a great conversation with someone who actually has become a very good friend, and also another professional speaker, Stacey Hunke, who's based in Chicago. And it was the first time she was one of the early interviews of Thrive Loud in the teens, like 16, 17 or something like that. And the feeling that I had of just, oh my God, the content is lost. And I felt just awful. And now I had to like call her up and say, can we do it again? Because I really wanted to do it. I cared so much about it. And I remembered really the level of rage I had with that company that they lost the content. So they'd actually, like, it was recorded and something got scratched, some technical error. Tied with my in-person interview with Jackie the Joke Man Martling, who used to be on the Howard Stern show.
Yeah.
At his house in Long Island in Bayville. This is the technical difficulty. I had one of those. He wanted to do it in person. He wanted me to drive out to Bayville, Long Island, which is not that close to me, just for the record. Go to his house. I've met him before. I actually was on his radio show. It's actually what kind of got me into wanting to do podcasting. He used to have a show on Sirius XM, and I got to tell jokes, and it was called, The Joke Hunt was what it was called. Mm-hmm. Just a whole play on words. And we're there at his house, 90 degrees outside. His air conditioning is not working, and there's a lawnmower going on outside and construction work somewhere across the street as well. So you could, between birds chirping, wind blowing, there's like, we're sweating because it's 90 degrees. The guy doesn't have any AC, and we've got these two microphones, and we're pretty close to it. And all I'm thinking about is what the background sound is going to sound like, right? Yeah. There's an entire segment of just all you hear in the background is like that. And I'm going bananas. And I remember we had to edit it out and all that stuff. So those are the two. Those lost the content, and then just the sound quality from the surrounding environment were just awful. making the recording terrible.
So you're a true pro at this. How much does that throw off your game when you're interviewing someone? Because I know for me, if I have the sort of thing because of the ADHD where like, if I hear someone breathing too loud, I could get taken out of something. I'm like, don't you understand? I'm in my focus mode. How much does that throw you off when you hear the background stuff where you hear a hum on the line or, whatever, a high pitch something or other?
Back then, it definitely affected me. Back in the early days, not having done this a lot, and this is in like 2016, 2017, when we were doing like first doing this stuff, or like early 2017, it definitely, the quality of the recording to me was so essential because I was so concerned with how many people would be listening to it. Because I had so many listeners back then. Oh my goodness.
Oh yeah. You got to watch out for the 3 people listening.
Yes, exactly. I mean, my mom, my dad, and my cousin might have an issue with it. So back then it wouldn't rattle me. I would get through it. Today it does. Today I just roll over because one, the technology has gotten much better on how we stream and the quality of recording. I mean, there are sound levels that we can check. There's really cool tools that we could use. So today it's not as bad. Today, and if there is an issue, it might bother me. Like I'll hear some popping noise. And in the beginning, I've gotten really good. Let's try to visually set somebody up. You and I just did this before we did recording. Like there's video of this and we try to make our heads about the same size in our video or the graphics that we see up here, right? We're trying to line this stuff up because we've done it so many times. I'll tell you what does annoy me though. Not having that thing I described before, not having headphones to split up the microphone kills me when that delayed effect comes in and I can almost hear me through their speakers. That drives me bananas. Or no microphone. You were talking about bad equipment when they have no microphone. I want to say this to the listeners. We're talking through 2 pretty nice microphones. We've definitely upgraded the quality of our equipment over the years.
Yep.
I still have my old Blue Yeti up there. Which
I don't know. I gave away my Blue Yeti as a gift to someone who was just starting a podcast.
Yeah. By the way, for those who want to start podcasts,
it's a great starter mic.
It's a great starter mic. It also happens to literally pick up sonar radar from like 16 miles away. It is probably like the biggest sponge, and it's not as laser focused. So the equipment's gotten better. But when they have nothing, it's like I don't know what they're thinking about, like when they're trying to get the technical difficulties, because it's the sound of their quality. We can edit things and make people sound better, but when you're recording something in a difficult spot to hear you, we want to hear you sound great, be spectacular, sound spectacular. That's what I always say.
Be wonderful. And I think that's the message of dealing with technical difficulties. Be wonderful, be thoughtful. So final words on technical difficulties, anything that podcasters can do to avoid it on their end, anything that everyone should watch out for.
I'd say the number one thing you need to watch out for is something will go wrong. It will never be perfect. You will never be in an inside insulated, perfectly innocuous type of environment that will do it. Something will go wrong. So set your expectation that you're going to have to adapt to something. And that'll get your brain set to be able to handle it. And do the best job you can as a host to pre-communicate to your guest to get a microphone, to get headphones, to be in a quiet place. This is stuff that you could actually send them in their reminder messages. And that will at least get them to think that they know that they should do it. It won't always fix it, but it'll improve the likelihood that you'll have a great conversation when you do.
I would say my advice is similar, and it would, the big one would be try to control the things you can actually control. So hit record. Whatever you got to do to make sure you do that, because trust me, you don't want that one on your conscience. So hit record. Make sure you have great internet. Pay for the better internet. If you're going to be a podcaster, like I'm on a gigabit connection with through FiOS. I'm ready to go, baby. But try and make sure you've got the best you can. I mean, obviously, if you can't afford it or anything, I'm not trying to throw that on someone, but whatever the best you can get in terms of things you can control, do it. As far as your microphone, your headphones, your mixer, any of that sort of stuff, just try and make sure that you're set up in a way that you feel comfortable and you feel confident in your in the tools that you have. I think that's another thing, making sure you understand the tools you have. Like don't go full tilt and get yourself like a 20-channel mixer with all these knobs that you don't know what to do with. Get something that can get the job done and then upgrade over time. You mentioned it. You've got your Blue Yeti on the shelf and you got a better mic now. We all start somewhere. So start where you are and then upgrade over time, get better and get the tools of the trade there. And then for the rest of the things, like the guest's internet connection, or, just all of a sudden something happens in the background that you can't control. That stuff you just got to let go. Sometimes it's going to happen. Sometimes you're going to lose episodes. You're going to lose portion of episodes. I've had guests where their internet just drops out as they're about to drop the hammer, man. They're about to give us the goods, and just you can't hear them, right? It's terrible. So you just got to let it go. Got to let it happen.
And know when your landscapers are going to be working, because there's nothing worse than the buzzing lawnmower in the background when you have to go.
Yeah, exact same thing. If you can, try to not have your house be along a flight path. So if you can, just up and move the entire house several towns over so that you don't have planes overhead.
This is the Post Pod Show.
I'm Jeff.
I'm Lou.
It's the Post Pod Show.